Jahseh Enfroy, better known as XXXtentacion, is one of the most uniquely talented yet infamous and enigmatic artists of all time. For a brief period of time, we could not help but to look at me, and look at X we all did. Welcome to Hidden America. Buckle up, grab your popcorn, and let's go down the rabbit hole. Now, while being in a youth detention center as early as 2013, X became acquainted with and close friends with Stokely Goldborn, better known as Ski Mask the Slump God, who became a playable character in the XXX story arc. In 2016, both Ski Mask and X were used and loosely managed by Dylan Turner, professionally known as Tables. Tables was paid a one-time payment for Look at Me, not even close to understanding just how important and lucrative that song would shortly become to X's meteoric rise to the national zeitgeist and collective consciousness of the youth of the world. A genius who is often labeled a madman once said, "He alone who owns the youth gains the future." X learned this at an extremely young age. He promised one day he was going to start a riot. This was already the beginning of X's Masonic journey, the journey of the fool, the journey of the seeker, the quest of the unknown initiate. Now, Tables seen the burgeoning talent in not only Ski Mask, but also in X. Tables kept it solid as one night a drunk Ski Mask and Tables got into an argument at Tables' apartment. Ski Mask stormed out. According to Tables' accounts and police reports, an intoxicated X broke into his apartment shouting, "What if I stab you? What if I effing stab you?" while poking a knife towards Tables' stomach, making accidental contact. X and others then stole his laptop and fled the scene. Tables required emergency surgery and pledged to drop charges against Jahseh Enfroy if his computer was returned, saying that he didn't want one bad choice to define who X was. Tables stuck to his word, despite all its files being deleted on his laptop. Enfroy paid for the entirety of Tables' hospital bills and later apologized. Tables was one of the earliest ex-associates to introduce Enfroy to the occult. Now, at this point, X became enamored with the Hermetics and the Master Key system, but also the idea of the dark arts, energy vampirism, and the manipulation of energy. X became obsessed with the idea of becoming a living god. Early on, X chose the Lefthand Path, the path of the dragon. Now, when Jahseh was a child, he discovered his uncle's dead body after the man had committed suicide. This was only one of the many traumas a young Jahseh faced and painfully integrated into his shadow. Wherever Jahseh went, trauma followed. As X was learning his craft, he read and read, learning and absorbing information at a quicker rate than most kids his age. He quickly learned, as famous French occultist Eliphas Levi states, the practice of magic, either white or black, depends upon the ability of the adept to control the universal life force, that which Levi calls the great magical agent or astrolight. By the manipulation of this fluidic essence, the phenomena of transcendentalism are produced. Even his name was a highly charged spell or sigil, XXXtentacion. X equals 6 in Pythagorean numerology. The word tentacion in his stage name is the Spanish word for temptation. Therefore, XXXtentacion is the temptation of the devil, 666. To put it as bluntly as possible, to control the great magical agent or the seething energies of Lucifer, the initiate must learn to control and manipulate the proper application of the dynamo of living power, the great magical agent or astrolite, and only then has he learned the mystery of his craft. Now at this time, X and Ski Mask met a man known as Bruno Dickens, who ran a model's house and worked as a male talent. Bruno was a porn star. X nearly broke out at the time, moved in, and Bruno acted as his new manager. In a 2017 interview, an adult performer named Marsha May, at the time she was new to the porn game, moved into Bruno's model house, only to discover that Bruno was a straight-up creep and a Satanist. Bruno, being from South Florida, got deeply into Santeria. Other rappers like Gunplay have been accused of being involved in the practice of Santeria as well. It is important to note, as Mark Passio explains, it is much more accurate to perceive Satanists as ancient psychologists who hold and wield hidden occult information in ways which exploit those who remain ignorant of it. This is what Bruno does. May claimed Bruno was sacrificing the souls of his female talent without their prior knowledge. That guy Bruno that had that model house, he was a male talent too, says May. I actually can't stand him. His name is Bruno. He does some sick satanic shit with the girls. He sacrifices girls' soul when he F's them on the top of his bed. May later continues. He has the gates of hell, a pentagram drawn underneath his bed, and he sacrifices girls' souls on the top of the bed. Later in the interview, without being provoked, she brings up X. XXX does the same thing, May says. Yeah, he sacrificed his best friend's soul, Ski Mask. Sacrificed his soul. It's real. In an infamous Ski Mask the Slump God freestyle, two people can be heard having sex in the background. One of those people, as Ski Mask confirmed, was his ex-manager, Bruno. Later on, Ski Mask basically confirmed what May said was true, that X was trying to sacrifice him, and Ski Mask distanced himself from X. At the same time, it seemed like X was even trying to lure Ski Mask back into his orbit. It would seem X made a deal with the Baphomet and a human sacrifice was needed. We know how this industry works. He thought it could be Ski Mask, but Ski Mask seen it coming. It could not be his mother Cleo. X loved his mother too much. He had soul ties to his mother, so X chose to sacrifice himself. In the song, I spoke to the devil in Miami. He told me everything would be fine. It would seem Bruno, or maybe a character named Teflon Sean, who we will discuss very soon, was the person who brought X to the crossroads to meet the Baphomet, the god of the witches, Papa Legba, to make the deal for Anima Vesta, his soul. Now, was a Faustian bargain struck at this point? Well, let's back up a little bit. We have already concluded that the name XXXtentacion could technically mean the temptation of the devil symbolizing the materialistic riches of this world, or the material plane in general. X once said in an interview, the X stood for the unknown variable. Like in algebra, X is the unknown variable. Therefore, XXXtentacion is the unknown temptation. I believe X understood exactly what that unknown temptation was. X knew words are magic. And X was extremely careful with the words he chose to share with those around him. X also understood natural law and the law of equivalent exchange. In order to receive something, like worldly riches, something must be sacrificed in return, aka human life. Let's continue to go down deeper into the rabbit hole. Now, X's occult arc can be seen as the villain arc, if you like. While X was still living with the male porn star, creep, and self-proclaimed occultist in Baphomet, Bruno Dickens, there was another hanger-on named Teflon Sean, who deeply impacted Jah's life. Who is at Teflon Sean 187? Remember that infamous Ski Master Slump God freestyle called Psycho, where you can literally see two people having sex in the background? The male talent was Bruno. The person who shot the video was Teflon Sean. It is commonly debated if it was Bruno or Teflon Sean who brought Jahseh to the crossroads, where he made his Faustian bargain: worldly riches for his soul, anima vesta, my soul. On SoundCloud, on a Helping Hand stream, Jah literally said, "There is no simpler way." Holy shit, shout out to Teflon Sean. Let's examine Teflon Sean's X. Obviously, this man Teflon Sean is deeply into the craft. He seems to be an initiated Mason and heavily into left-hand path working, specifically working with Hecate and other demonic entities. It was here that Jahseh learned about the golden Beetle. Jahseh went from Bruno's model house, where porn stars were literally getting their life force extracted from them on the daily via an altar underneath the bed of Bruno. Whatever entities Bruno was working with his offerings was the life force of these unsuspecting women. Now, it is well known in the porn industry for the tapes to be backmasked, frequency manipulated, and all sorts of energy extraction sigils in plain view of the watcher. So even his life force is getting depleted just by viewing these symbols, which have been heavily charged in the intent set to drain as much life force as possible, feeding both the practitioner and the entity in which he made a blood pact with. Eventually, always, these demonic entities want blood. More and more blood. Now, X, a relatively unknown SoundCloud rapper with a cult following, went from this occultic environment. Supposedly, he had just performed the most successful ritual of his life to trade his soul for all the world had to offer. But as natural law states, you can't hurry time or stop the coming energy. X was about to start a riot. But first, he needs to be incarcerated. This is the law of equivalent exchange working in real time. The Geneva incident occurred, and X was literally a demon possessed at this point. At times, even Geneva, X's girlfriend at the time, would pretend to be demonically possessed. But what happened to Geneva was not okay. Period. The pictures speak for themselves. X put that poor girl through hell, a literal black eye on his whole career. X needed to be humbled and grounded. The universe is funny like that. And X was taken into custody. At this time, X is recorded asking Geneva to drop all charges, offering her $10,000. X can also be heard in one phone call asking for precise step-by-step instructions on how to perform a certain ritual to Hecate, the Greek goddess of the crossroads in witchcraft. Whatever ritual X performed before being incarcerated, whether it was from the guidance of Teflon Sean or Bruno, seemed to be extremely successful, and X was released on bond with the biggest hit song in America, "Look at Me." X was a bona fide superstar. The first thing he did on his jail comeback tour was strategically take shots at Drake for stealing his flow. At this point, Drake was untouchable, but Jahseh literally thought he was a god incarnated. In songs like Demons, it shows Enfroy was strongly questioning the traditional idea of God. Demons goes as far as discussing a revenge fantasy against Jesus and God for allowing the atrocities in the world, while expressing skepticism about the existence of God. Specifically, Enfroy describes seeking revenge upon God for allowing his uncle's suicide. Jah describes witnessing someone's tongue being cut straight out. He also describes witnessing someone being R-worded and someone attempting to kill his mother. At this point, Jah was strongly tied to the Lefthand Path and the eventual idea of reincarnation. This can be considered the downward part of Jahseh's villain or occult arc, but of course, not without some trauma and shocking surprises. What was promised in the pentagram at Bruno's altar of lust and sex couldn't just be forgotten. Shortly after being released from jail, 19-year-old Jahseh became infatuated with 16-year-old Joselyn Flores, who came to South Florida to visit her idol, XXXtentacion. He first messaged her on May 1st, 2017. May 1st is known to pagans as Beltane. In Bavaria, the feast day is sometimes called XXXtentacion, which literally means the witch's night. This is right during the dark occultist season of sacrifice. This date was picked on purpose. There was no coincidences. There was nothing pleasant about Joselyn's dream vacation with her idol. X decided to kick Joselyn and her friends out of his hotel room after accusing them of stealing thousands of dollars. On May 14th, 2017, 13 days after coming to South Florida, Flores was found dead. Now you can make your own conclusions, but X chose to use her suicide note as the cover art for the Joselyn Flores single, one of his biggest songs of all time. Now remember, at this time, Ski Mask the Slump God, once X's best friend, began to separate himself from X, claiming X was trying to sacrifice him. X was quoted many times saying he wasn't going to make it past 21. Right before his death, he tweeted, "If anything happens to me, it's Champagne Puppy, aka Drake. I'm snitching." 1 month after X's death, Teflon Sean posted a picture of X in front of the Baphomet. But what if it goes even deeper? Did X plan his own assassination? Is there far more to this tragic tale? Was X's death truly an assisted suicide? All questions will be answered in part 2. No stones will be unturned. Thank you for watching part 1 of I Spoke to a Baphomet, the XXXtentacion story. What is real will prosper.